I'm letting it play a little bit more today. Just keep that volume up, Charlie. That's in my head all day. Had it in the car. We were down at Lakers Tavern with the Southern Rhythm Band boys. That's Cal, the lead singer. Very good, Charlie. They played a beautiful gig out at the Lakers Tavern, their local tavern in Thornley. Tell you what, never been to Thornley. Very nice part of the world, Mark Reddings. You are here on the Shelter FootyCast. This is my custom, one-of-a-kind Lakers Tavern T-shirt from the Southern River Band boys, and I'm fired up. I had a great night out there last night.
Yeah, g'day, Scully. How'd you get home?
I drove home, mate.
Brilliant stuff.
Yes, I drove out to the Lakers Tavern, just made sure I was all nice and responsible out there and drove home. I don't know how I would have got home otherwise, to be honest. How about you, mate? You have a big day after the WAFL Grand Final?
We had a couple of refreshments after the GF, and then just pulling up today. I went closer to home than what you did, but listening to some music. And, of course, trade week starts today. I'll just remind me, actually.
We are recording this Sunday night. We can be very, very honest about it.
But yeah, the 3rd of October is my anniversary. Just reminding myself, yes. So I've got to keep that in the front of mind for the next 45 minutes.
If Shelter FootyCast isn't here for anything else other than remind Mark Redding when his anniversary is, well, we've achieved something. If you're the first time here, we're doing a bit of a trade preview today, but we do this every week, Monday and Thursday. We're going to skinny that out a little bit coming into Christmas, but we're going to be following the trade week, the draft period, Soccer World Cup, 2020 cricket. It's all going to be happening here on the Shelter FootyCast. A bit of a West Australian theme. Anything comes up West Australian, we'll get into that. You can follow us on socials, Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. You can send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Follow us on YouTube. Listen to us as a podcast. Shelter, born and brewed in Busselton, doing great things down there. I do hear the Southern River Band boys played a very good gig down there one time. I went out to the Lakers Tavern. They're playing with the Darkness in 2 weeks' time. They're doing a national tour as well. So it's all happening for the boys.
I'll tell you where they'd go down well tonight and over the next week.
Shelters.
Yeah, and the Shelters and the band at the Penrith Leagues Club, because the Panthers have won back-to-back NRL titles. Just the third club to win back-to-back in 30 years in the NRL. They were superb against the Eels.
Can you put that in AFL context? They've been a real dominant side, haven't they?
They've been terrific. A guy called Nathan Cleary, who's their star. His dad is the coach, so it's a really unusual setup.
But he's actually good. He's not just getting a game because his dad's the coach.
He's getting a game because he's a gun.
Yeah.
So the Panthers, they're out in the west of Sydney, as you know. So, yeah, the NRL supporters, they'd be either licking their wounds if you're a Para fan, or you'd be lapping up the fact that, they're one of the best teams of the modern era.
A couple of big things here in Western Australia as well as around the nation in the AFL landscape. Brad Scott appointed as the Bombers coach. How do you see coming out of that? How do you sit on that? Good appointment. Happy with that?
Happy with that. The biggest story out of that whole appointment is Kevin Sheedy's reaction and just going public. He was overseas about the board member vote, which he voted for James Hird, which is fine. But then to go public with it, I'm not sure he needed to do that. He could have told James Hird privately that he voted for him.
People were saying that it's untenable his position on the board.
You can't sack him. I mean, he can't be sacked from the board, but whether he now
steps away,
urged to step away, yeah.
No, it's an interesting one. I don't know. They came out early and said that they wanted an experienced coach, and we sat here one day. We couldn't come up with too many names, but they have landed their man. He coaches North for over 10 years. I heard a decent stat on social media today, which I'm not sure it's overly positive. In that 10 years, he did coach North Melbourne to a couple of prelims, which is success, you would say.
Yeah.
But never once coached them to a top 4 finish. Not once in his time at North Melbourne. Good, bad. I know people look at North Melbourne as maybe a battling club financially, and that has certainly been a fact. But to coach a team for a long time and never finish top 4, I don't know if that's a successful tenure. Hopefully his time at Essendon will be greater than that. They've got some big moves to make in this trade period. So we are going to, this episode on the Shelter FootyCast, we're going to quickly go through each team and each of their credentials, what they need, what their draft picks are, who they're losing, who's coming in likely. And we're going to just give you a bit of a preview of each team. Before we get there, the WAFL Grand Final was on Saturday, as we just mentioned. You and I called it on Channel 7. It was a great game. It was a great spectacle.
Yeah, 16,000 fans. I reckon Leaderville looked pretty good. Inside and out. I think the precinct around it was busy, and yeah, it was, look, this is the second time that it's happened outside of, say, Optus or Subiaco Oval. Fremantle Oval a couple of years ago, now Leaderville, and there is an argument after what we've seen, and you're a bit of a fan, I believe, of doing that every year.
So I do 6PR talk back, and a few weeks ago I went pretty hard saying it's a community game. You get 3,000 people a game going during the week, to normal rounds. It's not getting 50,000 people to games, so let's keep it community, make it accessible to people. You can't have the people on the ground like you can at Leederville that you could at Optus. You don't get that engagement that you get with people. That's what the WAFL should be. And what we saw at Leederville Oval was unreal. They shut down Leederville. That was a buzzing precinct, I believe, after the game.
He was indeed.
You can confirm that. I just thought it was fantastic. One thing I was looking forward to, so it's a bit of an insight to our listeners on TV. Mark and I are up in the television box, and you can turn your microphones off, and there is communication between the commentators. About halfway through the third quarter, Mark Reddings just sat back in his chair. He said, "Game over." He wrote Claremont off, and they just started, didn't you?
Yeah,
you really rocked back. And
Who won the premiership?
Mate, it was one West Perth defender's hand away from Smallwood having a shot in front 10 metres out.
Let me just check the scoreline. It's a 2-goal win, so you can call it early. Or you can call it late.
Were you shaking in your boots a tiny bit?
No, I was hoping Claremont would keep coming. I mean, if they'd kicked that goal and Munns didn't get their hand in there, then it would have been a terrific thing. I think the best team won.
Before we get into it, it was one of the all-time stitch-ups, I think, by you to me. Quick phone call during the week. Sky, I got something great for you, mate. Would you like to vote on the Simpson medal? And I immediately said, that sounds good. And then I started thinking, geez, a bit nerve-wracking, but... you want to get it right. It's a big moment in someone's career to do it. But then I thought, how hard can it be?
Yeah, just look at the stats.
Someone will stand up, kick 5, and there you go. There's your 3. I don't know, have 35. The leading possession getter for West Perth was 21 touches. Yeah. No one stood out. I'll give insight. With 2 minutes to go in the game, I still had no idea who I was voting for because it was just a really even performance by the team. It was a lot of pressure.
And I was standing with you. I was standing with you when the winner was announced, Luke Meadows, and the relief in your face was palpable. I mean, there was something you just clearly thought, at least I haven't stuffed this up, which is a fair call.
Yeah, so my 3 votes went to Luke Meadows. I confirmed with Tony McHale, who was another voter who he voted for. He gave 3 votes to Eastland, the Claremont Ruckman, which I think's fair.
Yep.
I didn't give him any votes, which is probably a good thing because if I had he may have actually challenged... If I had given him me 1 or 2, and then 2 votes he gave to Meadows, and then 1 vote he gave to. He had 30 touches off the back flank
for Claremont.
Yep, Sando medal.
Rogers.
No,
Ryan Lynn.
No,
Geelong boy, Jai Bolton.
Yes, Jai Bolton. 1 vote to him, and I gave 1 vote to Jack Buller.
Did he find it tough as well?
Yes, yep, one of the harder ones he's ever done. So I'm thankful that my 3 voter got the medal, and well deserved to West Perth and the boys that win that. Andy Brayshaw wins the Doig medal.
No surprise.
Don't think there was any surprise. There was a couple of backmen in their top 5, which I like. Alex Pearce in 4th place, Brennan Cox in 2nd place, Griffin Logue was in 6th place. And Rory Lobb was in their top 10. So they're going to lose 2 players out of their top 10 to trades in this off-season.
So with Logue and Lobb finishing where they did, does Justin Longmuir say to the clubs they're going to, pony up? Is it a bit of that?
Well, maybe. I was really surprised to not see Blake Akers in their top 10. Maybe he didn't play enough games or something. But
he was injured with the hammy, remember? But missed
he didn't miss 6 weeks. He was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe.
I thought missed a chunk. But yeah, I thought he had a good year.
I thought they might have rewarded role players a little bit more at the footy club, but maybe not. So they don't get there and done that. And a big trade news as we move into our trade period preview for Shelter FootyCast. Jason Horne-Francis has reportedly requested a trade to Port Adelaide.
Yeah, well, South Australia.
Huge.
That's huge. I mean, number 1 draft pick. He didn't play a couple of times this year for, disciplinary reasons or whatever reasons they are.
No, like professionalism.
Yes. So
didn't get in the ice bin, so Lee Adams dropped him. It's probably going to look back that probably not the smartest move in the world.
No, but maybe he checked out. Maybe he was already making the move out of Melbourne. So Port Adelaide, that's some huge get for them in the off season if they can add a ready-made player. North will put some work into him, and he's easy number 1 draft pick. He is by number, but has he shown you enough to suggest he's going to be a real gun?
If North Melbourne could take Port to the cleaners and say, no worries, you can have him for 3 first-rounders or 2 first-rounders and a future second or something like that. Yeah. You're replacing 1 player with, and you nail your draft picks, you'd do it. Like, really.
Yeah, of course.
If he doesn't want to be there, you may as well get him out, but act
devastated.
Disappointed. Disappointed and clean him out. All right, let's move on to the West Coast and Fremantle wrap on the Shelter FootyCast. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield. Western Australian teams first, as we mentioned, Brayshaw wins the Doig medal. Let's get into Freo's trade preview. We'll do West Coast and then we'll get through the other 18 teams. I'm going to try and put a 2 to 3 minute timer on each team. Fremantle trade preview. We know what's going on there. Mundy's out the door. Bye-bye. Blakely and Weston delisted. Expected losses. Now, this is a big list. Akers, Logue, Tucker, Lobb, Meek, Henry, maybe. Who do they get in, Skeet?
Well, they get Luke Jackson as the obvious one, but outside of that, I mean, they talk of Jeremy Sharp and Josh Corbett, but if we're looking at like for like, they're not. That's going to stack up for them next year. So there's some concern, I suppose. The draft has been successful for them going through the draft, but I think, and you've even said this a couple of weeks ago, I think they're going to have to look at maybe bringing in a player or two, at least one, just to give them. I mean, you just can't replace Logan and Akers and Lobb, who are experienced and players at top 10. Top 10, yeah. Yep.
So not only did they play most games this season, they played well. So that you might be right. Not saying that anyone doctors any votes or anything like that, but the fact that they're finished in the top 10 again is a positive thing for Freo when they go to the trade table and say, hey, these are good players. They aren't just scraping the barrel. They've got draft picks 13, 73 and 86. So they're actually missing a few draft picks, which they should get a few with some of the guys out the door.
I mean, go back to the golden draft when they picked up, was it Chera and Brayshaw with their two early picks? And, of course, they got a nice return for Chera last year. So, as you say, if a player wants to go home like Chera did, you can still win out of the situation.
What's their biggest need for
Well, not defensively.
No.
I think
midfield strong.
Midfield strong,
and
but
they have two ruckmen if they get Jackson.
It's obviously goals, isn't it? I mean, small forwards have probably got Switkowski, Walters goes around again, but they need, Amos is going to be good, Taberner's a bit unreliable with his body. They need another tour now. Hypothetically, someone like Logan McDonald, as we've talked about, would be nice. So, that's a sort of age demographic I think they're going to look at, but how they can get someone across is a different matter.
Maybe it's not a this year thing. Maybe it's next year thing. Maybe they just build on what they have. They add Jackson to the group, and maybe they get a couple more boys into the group. As we say, key forwards and good ones don't go on the tree. And not many teams have them, to be honest. It's not like every team has these gun key forwards running around. Everyone wants a key forward. Let's have a look at West Coast. Have a look at their trade preview. Kennedy and now Jack Redden out the door.
That surprise you?
Yes. Yeah, it did. Yep. So I did hear that a little bit earlier than most people would have, but as you know, Scared, I like to keep a few things close to my chest, especially in that realm. I blew up at the start of the year when journalists were announcing other players retiring when they hadn't had the opportunity to do so themselves. Yes. So did know Reddo was retiring, and he'll be on BackChat on Monday night. We'll be able to secure his services, which would be great. But I was a little surprised, but also I think it's the right move in saying that. Not that there's no use in Reddo going around again. But
is his body cooked?
I believe I believe he did have a contract,
a 1 year deal. Yeah, I thought.
So he reached a trigger in his contract last year at about round 21 to round 22 to go on again. So I think they would have had to have a discussion around some sort of payout, West Coast, and I can honestly say I would tell you if I haven't heard anything like that from Reddo, but just reading it a little bit, I think West Coast would have at least had to talk about, look, maybe it's a good option for you to finish up. And Reddo probably agreed. Speaking to him, he seems quite content. He's had a terrific career, but he's out the door now. So they lose a couple of pre-season signings in Dixon, Joyce and Naish. Jacko Nelson goes away. He's delisted. We've spoken about him. I think he may get an opportunity on another list. Junior Rioli wants out the door to Port Adelaide. There are some guys that are floating around potential ins into West Coast, though.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Hunt seems just about across the line.
I reckon that's done.
Devon Robertson's name's come up.
It doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Hunt will be good. I think he'll be a good pickup for them.
Yep.
And look, their draft hand isn't bad. I mean, first time they've had anything of any consequence. Pick 2, 20, 26, 39, 75.
I heard Quinton Narkle's name being thrown around in a little bit. So you're West Australian?
Yes. West Aussie boy. So possibly. But no, I think the Eagles will know exactly where they sit, and they'll obviously draft wisely, and then, as you say, what do they need? They need mids, don't they?
They do. Carl Amon's compensatory pick to Port Adelaide is 27 at this stage, so that won't get the Junior Rioli deal done, I don't think, so that there'll have to be some action on Port Adelaide's side to actually up their hand in that deal, but West Coast should land another pick inside 20, so they should have handy. 3 picks inside 20, 4 picks inside 26, so you should be, if you look at the list, and any list really, if you get your drafting right, you should be able to pick 4 150-game players. Won't happen. and it never does. Not everyone, you can't throw every dart at the dartboard and they all hit the bullseye, but 4 picks should give you a good chance to get a couple of really good players in that play a lot of football for West Coast. I think the midfield is the area they're going to with Redden out the door. They've got some, developing guys that we saw, I think, a little bit more late than I probably expected. Xavier O'Neill, I thought, had a last couple of really good games for the footy club. Connor West is still he lacks polish, and that's just the player he is. He's not going to be your outside player. I think Jai Cully will develop. I think Campbell Chess is the big watch because effectively he'll be a draft pick coming through if he's right to go. I did hear he's actually still in rehab with
really?
Ankle. Yeah. So look, that could be business as usual. He hasn't gone home in this off season. He spent a bit of time home during the year, and he's back training at the football club, doing rehab, getting himself right for the coming season.
Did you think? When you read just quickly, I know we've got to push on to the next club. West Coast allegations or claims that some of the boys are fat, overweight.
Yeah, I saw that. So who was that named by? Matt Randell. Yeah, that's it. Yep. I like to name a shame here on the Shoulder FootyCast. Absolute garbage from Matty. Throws out a bit of that over the trade period. Jeremy McGovern, I can tell you right now, was the fittest he's ever been when he came back. And he was actually, you call your footy, you watch your footy quite a lot. He was playing some of the best footy he played. He copped really 2 bad injuries, the second one which ended his season. Elliot Yeo, I think, rather than fat, he's had 2 years of no footy.
The nature of his injury makes it hard to get the cage into the legs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So I think you'll see a better Elliot Yeo injury-free coming into this off-season and pre-season, and then back to Elliot Yeo. And then Nick Natanui, speaking about his weight, to be honest, he's been like that for his entire time in the AFL. So I don't think you can say he's overweight. That's how Nick Nananui's built. He's never been a 120-minute game player. He's a 70, 80-minute...
He's a big Fijian boy. He's going to... And look, I think because of his knee issues, I'm not sure he's been able to do, again, the work required. But he's not going to lose 10 to 15 kilos.
So it's why I think you do, and it's why I do. Stay away from critiquing players too much, mate. It's a bloody hard game. I would just doubt pretty highly that there'd be guys slobbing around, not caring about it.
Kane Corns went down this path as well. But yeah, you know this better than I about the work guys put in and what challenges that they face.
Yeah. Best of luck to everyone who wants to critique every player under the sun, though. It's about the time of the year that usually happens. That's West Coast and Fremantle. Let's get into the other teams on the trade preview here on the Shoulder FootyCast. Adelaide, a couple of delistings along the way. They're going to lose Billy Frampton, we believe, to Collingwood, who are trying to, shore up either end of their ground. He'll go in as a key position player. Matty Crouch potentially Matt Crouch, and in for Collingwood, I believe. Maybe not. I don't know. His name's been thrown around the bush a little bit.
Yeah. Gets a lot of the footy.
Yeah. Tom Mitchell's been linked to Collingwood as well.
Everyone's linked to Collingwood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're a good player. So Isaac Rankin's been linked to Collingwood.
Yep.
If they could add a Mitchell, a Crouch, a Rankin, those sort of guys, they make a prelim. They miss a grand final by 2 or 3 points this year. They could very easily challenge again this next year, and they'll go in as one of the favourites for 2023.
Yeah, I mean, look, Adelaide, that's handy. Isaac Rankin, he's a super player, isn't he? Just to add to your list.
Yes.
Roy Laird had a great year. Another fairest.
I started talking about Collingwood, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Sorry, I was absolutely off to the fairies. That wasn't I? Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, that's good.
That's good. Picks 5, 23 and 78 for the Crows. Billy Frampton, look, he's a WA boy and he's got a bit of talent, but yeah, I mean, they'll just put him in the background, I would have thought, initially at Collingwood, unless things change.
Thank you very much, Skate. Yeah, that's very good. I was off with the fairies. Well, that's Adelaide. Who cares about them anyway? Well, you can't say that, can you? Yeah, I think we can. We can do this on the Shoulder FootyCast. Brisbane, Mitch Robinson's out the door.
What about this? The ins and outs. Go through it.
Mitch Robinson, Mitch Cox. I haven't heard of Mitch Cox. Eli Smith.
Never heard of him.
And Davidus Uosis.
No, in all seriousness, some of these names, and Carl and I went through it on radio the other night, you go, they just get lost in the system. Something these kids or mature players, you don't crack a game and you're out the door sometimes as quickly as you walk through it.
So Dan McStay will head to Collingwood, we believe, who are trying to shore up either end of the ground, as I said before, with Billy Frampton and Adelaide. Brisbane, though, I think Tom Berry has requested a trade out of there, which is a little bit surprising. He started to get some good games in there. Jared Berry is, of course, his brother, so
It's a link.
Yeah, correct. Potential ins, they've got a couple of good ones. Dunkley comes in, Gunston comes in.
That's handy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Sean Hart's son, this is not trade, but drafting wise, mate, he's ready to go. So, look, for a team that finished top 4, they are going to improve next year, at least on paper.
Yep. They've got some draft picks as well, and of course, father-son, Ashcroft, who I assume he'd be number 1 without a father-son deal. That's what I've heard.
Yeah,
he's up there around pick 1.
Yeah, people telling me that he's ready-made, right to go, and he'll just slot straight into that Brisbane midfield, which is saying something.
Well, so Brisbane might be up and about next year again, even though people have pretty much written them off after the way they finished this year. They
one bad game,
scrapped their way to a prelim, but they still make a prelim.
And you win 2 good finals. You beat Melbourne, you beat Richmond. And the Geelong game was they won the grand final by 80 points.
They did better than Sydney, didn't they? Just I don't know.
They'll be good next year.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, depending on their coach, who's going to be there.
Well, yeah, correct. That's another issue, though. What about Carlton? Tell me who's going out of there, Skeeter.
Delistings: Will Hayes, Oscar McDonald, Jack Nunes, of course, kicked that match winner at the pocket at Optus Stadium. Luke Parks, Liam Stocker, Tom Williamson.
Liam Stoker, right?
Stocker.
I'll call him Stoker, though.
You're a stroker.
Mate, that's the one that they traded up in the draft to get.
Yes.
Played 20 or so games, and now he's out the door delisted. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about getting your drafts right. It's an inexact science. It's gold, not to be trying to get it right. They get paid the money to do it. But yeah, sometimes they come off. Sometimes blokes don't fulfil the talent or the potential that you see them as a club.
It doesn't sound like they're going to lose too many through trade. They've been linked to Akers, of course, from Freo, which I think he'd be a good addition to a Carlton team that's pretty stacked through the very central part of the ground. But, if you go and think about who their wingers are, Sam Walsh plays a little bit through there, but he's mainly an inside mid. I think Blake Acres would add something to Carlton that perhaps they built their game around that contested side this year. A little bit of outside balance from Blake Acres would go really well.
Yeah, and you've got the big boys up forward, like the Curnow factor and Mackay. So it's nice to have that in place. Weedering down back, hopefully injury-free. Yeah, they missed finals by a B's, but they should add some quality picks, 10, 29, 63, 65, 83. So Carlton will be thereabouts. And given the way they played, Paddy Cripps hopefully gets a good run at it next year again. They'll be knocking on the door.
Collingwood, Jordan Roughhead retires. Callum Brown, Tyler Brown, the brothers, they're out of there. Both delisted. Chugga McMahon, they're delisted. Bye-bye, boys. Expected losses. Now, these are big ones. Grundy to Melbourne. That's all but confirmed, apparently, which keeps being spoken about as a really strange deal. Effectively, Collingwood are paying Melbourne to get him off their list, and Melbourne, on the other hand, doesn't really make, I don't think, a whole lot of sense to have a Gawn-Grundy combination. It's not like a Jackson-Gawn combination.
Who plays forward then?
Well, yeah, Grundy's not a forward, mate. Like when Grundy used to come down forward, and with all due respect to Gawny as well, when he used to come forward, there's more dangerous guys. He's a ruckman. He's the best in the competition.
Yeah, well, they're both. I mean,
and Grundy has been as well.
Grundy fully fit, outstanding.
They're not forwards. They're not pinch hitting forwards.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? The Grundy one. Ollie Henry to Geelong. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he come on as a Medi sub this year against the Dockers?
So he's a first round draft pick. He's a Geelong boy. So he's linked to Geelong, and we'll get into Geelong shortly, but. What they're potentially coming out of the trade period with Geelong is absolutely ridiculous coming off a premiership, but we'll get into them in a little bit. So they're the potential ins out of Collingwood, potential ins. Dan McStays we spoke about, Bobby Hill, which would be a good addition.
He'll be handy because
remember that game we saw him play over here in Perth.
Yeah, he'll be. I reckon because he's been wanting to get to Melbourne for a couple of years.
Yep.
He gets his chance. I think he'll really enjoy Collingwood.
Braden Fiorini, Tom Mitchell. Tom Mitchell.
He's interesting, isn't he?
They're both big ball winning inside mids, both of those guys.
Tom Mitchell, would you be in Collingwood's position happy to pursue him?
I mean, you could not argue they're in the window. Yeah, I mean Collingwood are kind of. You haven't had too many down years either. Really, they're able to rebuild from within. So. If you're getting him on for $800 a year, no. But if you're getting him in for $400 a year or $500 a year, then absolutely, he's a great ball-winning midfielder. Do they need that with a Taylor Adams in the side. Scott Pendlebury won't play forever, although he may play forever.
But he's playing more off sort of half-back.
Correct. I wouldn't be scared of going after those guys. Braden Fiorenini's been a good player, hasn't been able to get consistent footy at the Gold Coast Suns. So, if they were able to land a couple of those, McStay, Bobby Hill, Billy Frampton, Tom Mitchell or Braden Fiorini, it'd be a pretty successful trade period for Collingwood.
No doubt about that. And Darcy Cameron, even given the Grundy loss, he's flourished, let's be honest, since he took the reins. Picked 16, 43, 48, 49, 89. So, Collingwood's well placed, and with those additions, if they get Mitchell and Hill, that's and McStay, that's a nice little war chest.
Darcy Cameron could have put literally a couple of zeros
Absolutely.
on the back end of his contract. Like he wasn't getting a game, and he's now the number one ruckman at Collingwood.
Yeah.
And has displaced a multiple Australian ruckman who's getting traded away from the football club. How good's that for
Huge
a turnaround?
story.
Very good. Essendon with a new coach, Michael Hurley retires. Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody, one of the great small forwards of our game. He's done and dusted. And Devon Smith, a Geelong boy, he's out of there. They delist a couple. No great names through there. Expected losses. Aaron Francis, an interesting one, potentially to Sydney. He's always been this in-between player, really high-credentialed young player, Aaron Francis, that was never tall enough to be a key position player, but he has played as sort of that, almost I would compare him to a Jeremy Howe at Collingwood, can play tall, can intercept the footy and can use the ball pretty well.
Yeah, good behind the ball.
Yeah, so that he would make sense at a Sydney. You think about Sydney's backman that can defend but also can really intercept the footy. Dane Rampy would be a name that I'd throw out there as probably not going to play forever, and maybe an Aaron Francis in to replace him, even though Aaron Francis isn't that young, I wouldn't have thought. It'd be
mid-20s?
Mid-20s, Charlie. I don't know if you can have a look at that. Charlie's behind the panels today, by the way. Very good. What about some ins for the Essendon footy side?
Yeah, Jack Bowes, who I thought was linked to Geelong, to be honest, but he's a couple of clubs that are sort of sniffing around there. Josh Corbett, again, Fremantle. And
there's a few guys on the market that would say that.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And they've got picks 4, 22, 41, 59, 77.
Does Scott come in, change their approach to anything?
I'm not sure.
Does he go and get just the best available? Does he look to move anyone on?
Everyone at Essendon keeps telling, like, Matthew Lloyd expects them automatically to bounce into the finals next year.
They don't have a good enough list.
No, their list is...
I said this at the start of this year.
You're right. Yeah, you said that.
Mick Moldhouse picked them for the premiership. They do not have a good enough list.
No.
They don't have any key position players. They got Peter Wright at one end. Who's their best key position backman? Yeah, you won't be able to think of it because that doesn't exist. They've got a young developing side that have got a run and gun midfield that can win the footy.
But we saw them on a Friday night against the Eagles.
Some of the best, worst defence.
The defence was just horrendous.
It was the most disappointing I've seen you at a game of footy. You were just absolutely flabbergasted with their defence.
Look, the numbers said it. They just leak goals. But anyway, you're right. The competition's better when Essendon's on the move. So, but you're right. I think they've got a bit of work to do on their list.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll see where they land. What about Geelong? Now, they don't pay Stephen Wells enough in their recruitment department.
They're genius.
Harry Taylor's in there as a GM now, I'm pretty sure. Andrew Mackey's in there looking after things. They've got a few old boys back in there. So they lose Luke Dalhouse, who's been a great player, played over 200 games, I believe. Joel Selwood goes out. We don't need to talk about Joel. Sean Higgins, who was a fantastic
fine
player,
citizen,
across 3 clubs. He misses out on a premiership and walks out the door with a happy family, a Geelong boy. They're actually all Geelong boys. Dalhouse, Selwood's a Bendigo boy, and then Higgins a Geelong boy. So they leave. A couple of delistings who have been linked elsewhere. Francis Evans, I believe, potentially could get some game time somewhere else. Quinton Narkle, of course, linked here to Western Australia. Expected losses. They're not really rumoured to be losing anyone, but these are the guys that they're linked to, and from all reports, going quite well in negotiations. So Ollie Henry, we spoke about from Collingwood, Tanner Bruin from the Giants, and so he's a first round draft pick. So he wants out to Geelong. He's a Geelong boy, originally. Jack Bowes, they're leading the race there, which comes with pick 7, mind you. So they're going to pay a bit of his big contract that he's on at Gold Coast, but they get pick 7 to compensate him for that. Connor McKenna from Essendon. Is that who that is, Charlie?
Is it the Irishman?
Hang on. You got a mic over there you can turn on and off.
Hasn't he? Didn't he go home?
I just saw Connor McKenna's name there. Holy shit. Can you please have a look, Dan?
That can't be right.
Can you just look up Connor McKenna? But if that's right, that's
I think you meant Conor McGregor, did you?
So if they get those 3 guys into the footy club, Bruin, Henry, Bowes, pick 7 after winning the flag, How are they doing this?
No, look, they've been a destination club for, I don't think of so many. Isaac Smith, Norm Smith medalist, Jeremy Cameron. There's a list. You just keep reeling them off, and they've got obviously pick 18, 37. So they don't have any really early picks.
Oh, well, they shouldn't have. They just won the flag.
No, I was saying no picks.
They'll have 7, mate. They'll have pick 7.
Yeah,
they haven't had a top 10 pick in years, and they're going to get one by getting a player. It's ridiculous. I would have thought the AFL might have vetoed it or something, but they'll be. I think they'll be challenging for years to come.
Really?
Yeah, you have heard it here first on the Shelter FootyCast. Very good. What about Gold Coast? A couple of these boys I haven't heard of. The delistings. No one's retiring. I can't remember. David Swallows. He's the only guy out there that I know that actually played footy up there for a long time.
He just keeps going. He's the most loyal servant, isn't he? He just keeps going. While others have left, he just hangs in there. So, yep, it's 2 years out of the sport. It'll be by the time
Chris Fagan's Brisbane side has emerged as the favourites to lure former Essendon halfback Connor McKenna back to the AFL after 2 years out of the sport.
But where did we say he was going? Geelong.
Charlie heard Geelong. Geelong's in the running.
Just shows you some of the Chinese whispers that happen. Anyway, the Irishman coming back.
Gold Coast, who's leaving there? Expected losses.
Rankin we've spoken about. Yep. Corbett, Sharp, possibly both to WA, not sure. Fiorini, Bowes. But the ins, Ben Long from the Saints, has chosen that. Connor Blakely?
I can't see Connor continuing his AFL career.
I can't see Connor getting a gig, to be honest. If he does, best of luck to him.
Yes.
They do get... He's not a draft pick, he's on a trade, but his name is King, and he comes back after a knee recon, so that's pretty good. They've got pick 7, 25, 32, so...
7, 25, 32, 35, 44, 53, 68, 71, 80. How many picks have these blokes got? What's going on?
I don't know. But
they're shit.
They need to... The club or the picks?
Yeah, the club, mate. They haven't made finals in their existence.
I know, and they just keep losing. Rankin's another example of wanting out. So, look, I hope they do well because the AFL has invested so much money in them.
That's why it's good that they've just locked into a coach.
Agreed.
Changing a coach isn't going to improve things. And maybe keeping him... Who knows? But you need to commit to something. So hopefully they improve from my valuation of shit. GWS, Manny De Boer steps away. He's had a great career over 2 clubs, Freo. Jared Brander delisted, which I was quite strong on him at the start of the year, but he hasn't been to get anything done there at the GWS.
Well, not vindicating West Coast, but they quite happy to see him leave, and he hasn't kicked on it at the Giants. And Sproul and Stein are also out the door.
They've got some big losses.
Yeah, you mentioned Taranto and Hopper, both to the Tigers. So we have to start thinking about what the Richmond side can do next year. Bruin to Geelong, or Bruin, Bobby Hill to Collingwood. Yeah, so they're going to have to reload again, aren't they, somehow?
Yeah, they're almost in rebuild stage.
Yeah.
New coach comes in and, they're at a rebuild stage effectively. They'll have pick 3, 21, 40, 58, 60, 76. So... they'll move on very quickly. Next team, please, Charlie, as we keep going. Hawthorn, they are in rebuild stage, absolutely rebuild stage. We've got all these guys muted out the door in senior players, plus McAvoy and Shields retire. Jack Gunston are supposedly out the door. Tom Mitchell supposedly looking elsewhere. They may get a Carl Amon in. They may get a Lloyd Meek, has been rumoured to the footy club, given Ben McAvoy stepped away. Jack Bowes has been very lightly linked to the club, but I don't think they get him. And if you look at their side from the last round of the year, they've got one of the youngest sides in the competition, and it gets even younger with Gunston and Mitchell stepping out the door. Yeah,
but what I think with Sam Mitchell, you can see the path they're heading, and to me, it's I've got no issue with what he's done.
He's backing in his philosophy and how he's going to do it. You got to remember, Sam Mitchell coached the VFL side for a year, so the relationship he would have with a lot of the young players would be almost better than some of the older guys, and that's not clean all the guys out and not play any of them or anything like that, but he will have very strong relationship with the young players at the footy club.
Did you have a good relationship at West Coast with him?
Yeah, he's the best coach I've ever played under.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Good relationship builder, incredibly intelligent, has I think a good balance between using his footy intelligence and game plan and just a bit of footy nous, a bit of the feel. Sometimes it can get lost in moving magnets around a board, and sometimes you just need to look at the game of footy, and he's good at that too. But he's incredibly well studied. He's been working a long time to become a good head coach, and we had a conversation on BackChat with him about effectively coaching philosophy. and he was pretty honest about it. He said, look, effectively it's a pretty cutthroat business. You've got to commit to something, and it either works or it doesn't. So he's committed to a rebuild, and he's going to get the players in to try and build to a game style that he wants to play. And from what I can see, the players have bought into that.
Yep.
They are playing a pretty distinct game style. It's a more risky game style. It's something that's a little hard to defend off turnover, but they do have the success of being a higher scoring team. But if it doesn't work and they don't win games of footy eventually, he's out the door. Like he won't coach forever if he can't get it to work. So, and he knows that.
I think you've got to give him 2 more years.
Oh, absolutely.
To just bet in where they're heading, and you need to see the roots come through.
I'm not at all saying any of that, but just as a coaching
in general,
anywhere, it's cutthroat, right? Like you've got to commit to something, and if it doesn't work, you're out the door.
At least then, if you do get the lemon, you do it on your terms.
Yeah, correct. That's absolutely right. What about Melbourne? Talk about Melbourne.
Mitch Brown, Majak Dor, retired. Fraser Rosman. Now, I've got to be honest with you.
About Fraser.
Never heard of him in my life. Is that unusual? Did you know about him, Charlie? No, thank you very much.
Conor McKenna linked to Melbourne as well, Charlie.
Luke Jackson heading, we know he's home. He was out having a drink with Sean Darcy the other day. Toby Bedford to the Giants, Jaden Hunt to the Eagles, and Brodie Grundy. For me, it's a weird look about what they're doing, but
they haven't got an old list. They're now experienced, successful side over 2 seasons. Yes, they didn't make the grand final this year, but they had a good year. It'll be more about building culture at that football club than what they do at the draft or the trade period. They may lose a couple of players, but that's what happens at good sides. Players don't get the opportunities, and they want opportunities. I mean, that's a little bit what's happened at Freo this year. They've become a better side and won games of footy, and guys haven't been played. And maybe want help elsewhere. We spoke about the Grundy-Gawn when we touched on Collingwood. I don't think that's a good duo. I don't particularly think the Darcy-Jackson thing's a good thing either at Freo. So maybe I'm just a grumpy old man talking about ruck combinations that don't necessarily work.
Yeah, well, we have seen in more recent times the dual. You don't necessarily need the 2-gun rowing. Very rarely do you see 2 star ruckmen playing the same side. So if Melbourne can make it work, kudos to them.
Alistair Clarkson's North Melbourne skate. How do you see this one?
It's fascinating, isn't it, given the news about Jason Horne-Francis?
Yes. I think Clarkson will be licking his lips about that, to be honest. I think he'd be coming in wanting guys. Just looking around the league at guys out of the Clarkson tree, Hardwick, Simpson, I've played under one of them. There's plenty of others, Stewie Dew. They're big on buy-in. They want collective buy-in. Now, if Horne-Francis isn't bought into what they're doing at North Melbourne and doesn't want to be a part of it for the long run, get him out of there. Yeah. That's what Clarkson will be saying. And if in fact he comes back to coaching, I think they'll clean Port Adelaide out of their draft picks because of it.
Yeah, well, that's true. And as you said, Horne-Francis, Jed Anderson through the door, out the door, should I say, Logue, Tucker, Brad Hill. I'm not sure the Brad Hill thing's going to stick. I think he's going to stay at St Kilda just from what I'm hearing. But pick one, obviously. Just remind me, are they getting a priority pick? Has that been decided yet?
I think they are, yes. Next year, 2023,
that's right,
round
next year.
2, round 3.
Yeah, there you go. If I'd read the script, I'd know that.
They have to be traded.
That's correct, yeah.
This year. They have to trade it this year. Okay, so they've got to trade future picks. So there'll be some movement at North Melbourne. I do look at North Melbourne and think if there was no Clarkson, which currently there is no Clarkson, if we're being honest, they're not a very attractive football side to go to. If there's no Clarkson and it's just an unknown coach coaching North, who wants to go to North?
Yeah, it's not. There's no sex factor, is there?
That's what. Absolutely not.
Sexy factor. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't draw you in there.
Yeah, we're hippie clubs catching up to Mark Reddings. We're almost there. Skeeter, Port Adelaide.
Big time for them.
Yeah, and they're moving and shaking, aren't they? So linked to Horne-Francis. Adelaide, of course, made a play at Horne-Francis before he was drafted to North Melbourne. He's an Adelaide boy. They threw a fair treasure chest at North Melbourne, and they said, no, we're going to take pick 1. Wonder if they look back on that and regret it or like it. Who knows? Robbie Gray retires. Stephen Motlop retires. A couple of great careers. Taj Schofield,
son of Jared,
gets delisted. Sam Skinner, who was at Brisbane, and then Port Adelaide goes, and Sam Mayes was Brisbane. Port Adelaide goes as well. Carl Amon, I think is he's signed, hasn't he?
I think that's just about done and dusted. Yep.
Correct. Sam Hayes potentially gone. Martin Frederick, no new contract. That is brother of
twin, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Twin brother, yeah.
That'd be good at Freo, wouldn't it? That'd be not that. Honestly, that'd be.
They'd ask the question, wouldn't they? At least,
yeah.
I mean. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the the ins and outs. Junior Rioli, we think, will get done. Francis Evans, Asava Radaglia.
So Francis Evans is a Geelong, both of these guys.
Oh, I didn't know much about Evans, but Radaglia, obviously, we've seen him quite a bit.
Geelong boys.
It sounds like Kenny's just decided, okay, this is my last throw at the stumps.
Yep. Yeah, it does. Can they add to their group and do that? They probably can. I think they've got a list. They haven't lost a lot. They'll have a couple of nice picks in the draft, and they'll get
They're a mover for me next year. I know we're not talking about ladder position, but they've lost their first 5, I think this year. They're a better side than that, and they'll be making the 8 next year.
Yep, absolutely. Richmond, as you mentioned off the top, I think this is a side that again will move given the ins. Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper potentially into this footy club with not a lot of delistings and losses after a couple of retirements in Edwards, Caddy and Lambert. Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper are pretty decent ins to your footy club.
Yeah, absolutely. And the window's still open for Richmond?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, okay. Especially with those additions. Yeah. Yes, key forwards are important, and Tom Lynch wins their best and fairest, so they've got one of those. But your key forwards don't get the footy if your midfield doesn't get it down to them.
Yeah, I mean,
those two are prime time midfielders.
You think Taranto, Hopper, Edwards is gone, but Dusty's fully fit. Matty Parker, delisted by the way, has signed with South Fremantle. So, and Damien Hardwick was in town at the WAFL Grand Final, by the way, on Saturday, and I was told, I can't remember who actually mentioned to me, but said he was absolutely outstanding as a guest speaker and self-deprecating, humorous.
He was over for Alistair Clarkson.
Oh, yes, I realised that for the Carbine Club. So they had to, well, either way, the switcheroo was made.
Yeah, very good. Well, at least you got to watch a good game of footy there. So Richmond, I think, will be right up there next year, top 4 type team. Been linked to enough good players there in the trade period. St Kilda, Hannanbury steps away after
a weird tenure there because he played some decent footy at the back end of this season when he finally got himself right.
Paddy Ryder, I think, was probably a list decision. He seemed disappointed to be walking away from the footy club, but I think it was one they had to make to have Rowan Marshall playing as that number 1 ruck, and they've probably moved a little bit of salary cap space out with the Paddy Ryder leaving. Jaron Geary, who has captained the club, he steps away as well. So they're 3 senior good players that step away from a St Kilda side that doesn't make finals.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's talk of Brad Hill possibly moving, but I still think he'll stay at the Saints. Ben Long has requested and is going to the Gold Coast, to my knowledge. It was interesting that my concern with St Kilda, they were obviously hot on Jordan De Goey if he had become available.
Yes.
Would you have gone chips in with De Goey or not? Where's St Kilda's at?
No, but that's like the perfect player for St Kilda.
Oh, no.
Like that. I
agree.
As in, that's the sort of guy.
Fits the type of player they like to get.
It's like he could be good.
We know he's good, but
he's good, and there's always a but. I would say most players that get traded to St Kilda over the last 5 years have been like that. Can be good and can be unreal. Can break games open. I mean, Brad Hill. Hopefully, it's not speaking out of school. He's been like that. He can play. Be the best on ground, but can go missing in games as well. So. Yeah, look, they don't have anything new, but Rowan Marshall, I think Rowan Marshall's a gun, and he will blossom as the number 1 without having to split ruck duties with a Paddy Ryder. I think Sydney's the next in line. So that's alphabetical order. Very good, Scully. On the bunny right now. Josh Kennedy, Cal Sinclair steps out the door.
Yeah,
retired.
Journeyman, or at least went from West Coast to Sydney. But yeah, he bows out. Barry O'Connor and Lewis Taylor.
Taylor from Brisbane, Geelong boy as well.
So he a diminutive forward, small forward, but
pretty sure he won the Rising Star.
I think you're right. Yeah, but who are they going to lose? Sydney? Well, not many, but Jake Lloyd and Harry Cunningham.
They'll sign them.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I reckon they'll be, obviously they've re-signed Tom Papley, 5-year deal. They're going to be pretty steady, I think. And look, they've got the youth brand.
They're a young side. I think the question with Sydney will be what do they do at the trade period? Fine, but how do they handle the loss of the grand final mentally?
Yeah, totally.
It will. You can say what you like. It's a grand final hangover. It sounds like it's about partying, and that's premiership hangover, of course. But there's a grand final hangover from losing.
Scars.
Yeah. Now, can you put that to the side and rebound like a Melbourne did after they? Well, not really.
No, it took them a few years.
Yeah, it did.
It took them 3 years.
Look, I did write an article on this, and there's some few sides that you can think of. GWS when they got spanked by Richmond.
Yep.
Adelaide when they got spanked by Richmond. West Coast when they got spanked in 2015.
Yep.
Like, we lost the plot for a couple of years.
So do you think it was directly related to what happened that day?
Absolutely, because your mindset goes into a mentality of
Almost there.
And then I have to get so much better.
Yeah.
Or we have to get so much better.
Because of one result.
Correct. It's just a game. It's just one game.
Yeah.
If it happened in the middle of the year, you'd be on to the next. But because it happens at the end of the year,
It's a lasting memory.
Yep, you got 3-4 months to think about it, and that's what you use as your driver. And then maybe you lose round one, or it doesn't go quite the way you're thinking. And what's happened? And then more expectation mounts. Then public criticism comes on, and it can create pressure that wasn't there the year before.
Yeah, I mean the Bulldogs. Last year made the grand final, and this year
Scraped into finals.
Scraped in
by a minute.
Never looked like it.
Second.
But you're right. It's well, let's say speaking from experience, making a grand final is good. But if you get beaten the way they did, Sydney. There's no guarantees, full stop.
I don't think there'll be a great deal of action in trade period, though, which is what this is, trade period. Preview, Western Bulldogs, last one. No retirements, no delistings. All happy over there. Dunkley wins the best, fairest, and out the door to Brisbane. A couple of ins, though, I think. Liam Jones, which has kind of gone under the radar for mine. I think that's a huge in if that's, in fact, guaranteed.
Yeah, I think he played up in Queensland, in the VFL up in Queensland for this season.
He was... at Carlton, he was spoken about in all Australian chats for a lot.
Yeah, it's look. Let me say he's vindicated about his vaccination situation, which is of course what precluded him from playing.
If they had a Liam Jones and a Lob, although I don't know if Lob is a huge need at Western Bulldogs.
No, when you think Josh Bruce is obviously coming towards the end, but is Aaron Norton, Jamara Ugle-Hagan,
Tim English runs around.
Tim English. Does Norton go down back, or
you can't play him. You can't play him back. He's too good of a forward.
Yeah, he is. No, that's the lob to the Bulldogs. I can understand him going to say Essendon or a club that needs that, but I was a bit surprised by that. But yeah, Liam Jones will be just what they need at the Dogs next season.
Alex Keith was dropped late in the year at the Western Bulldogs, so. Maybe he's replacing him, maybe he's not. Maybe someone like Liam Jones helps Alex Keith get back to his best, because he's been a good footballer at stages, but probably lost his way a little bit at the back end of this year.
I'm trying to think of the last time a fairest and best winner left the club to go somewhere else. I mean,
Neil didn't do that, did he? No.
I mean, as a captain, Lee Colbert went from North to Geelong, or the other way?
Who?
Lee Colbert was captain,
Yeah, he went from Geelong to North.
Geelong to North, but
And Chris Judd might have been up and around. No, 2007 he was quite injured. I'm just thinking of... So he was the captain.
But that's a rarity.
Absolutely. And they'll be disappointed to lose him, but... Again, as Bevo put it, what did he say? Pony up, boys.
Pony up. Pay up, in other words.
Very good. That's trade period. That's the preview. Thanks to the Shelter FootyCast. Do we want to give out a slab of beer today? I think we do.
Yeah, the bloke that's going to win it probably has already had about 2 cartons in the last 24 hours.
Shelter XPA X Factor. We've been doing this all year. A slab of beer to the best player of the round, West Australian. We're going to give it to Luke Meadows, Scully's Simpson medal winner.
Oh, look at him now. He's chortling because
maybe he should give me a slab of Shelters.
Mate, at 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, the stress on your forehead was like the pressure. I do get it. It was like
I was stressed.
You came up with.
Can you imagine? The Simpson medal goes to no one I'd given votes to.
Exactly, what could happen?
Yeah.
Embarrassingly so. But no, Lukey Meadows, Simpson medal winner. Of course, he left West Perth, went to play in Victoria. Bit of chat at some stage. He might have got drafted, but not to be. But he'll be enjoying the moment with his West Perth buddies over the next couple of days.
Hopefully your trade period goes well for your selected side. We'll be here at the Shelter FootyCast during that and post that. If you got anything to send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Follow us on Instagram, Shelter FootyCast. Follow us on YouTube. Listen to us a podcast. Skeeter needs to go to bed. He was at the hippie club till too late last night.
Well, I can't deny it.
And I'm going home too. Southern River Band boys, go and see them. Check them out. They're touring with the Darkness in a couple of weeks.
Ciao.